Hi, my name is Kristina Winters. I'm from Laura Gardino's class, giving a 5-minute presentation on the writing process of my artifacts. Starting with artifact number 1. This is the Goldie's Bird of Paradise. It is perched on a black beaver hat with ostrich feathers that cascade down the back of the hat, as you can see. What makes this very high in millinery fashion, and I'm just going to grab a strand here, hopefully you'll be able to see it, was that they were hand tied. You can see knots. So other strands of other plumages had been removed and hand tied individually to give it its cascading effect that you see now. And I could only assume women did that. It was very hard and very laborious. And I did find a primary source, or I want to say secondary source, because this secondary source gathered information from the primary source. So this is the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Philadelphia Museum of Art. It shows the exact same bird of paradise on display on hats there that you see here, but posed differently. Now my second artifact is this young lady here from 1877, just after the Civil War, not just after, but about good 10 years after the Civil War, perhaps, 65, 70, yep. She was difficult. I do know that she was of European descent only because of the ear piercing in her earlobe. That gave me an indication that she is European. Americans had a screw back on their ears, so they did not have the pierced ears. Another thing I found very difficult was the name. The artist who signed it had signed it where the letters were running into each other, so it did not give me a clear indication as to who did it. I did go through the House of Congress on the internet, the Library of the House of Congress Library of Art, and they had a multitude of pencil sketches, but basically of the war and men's photos. Why would I not be surprised? But I didn't find hardly any women, young women, and she's a young lady, and I wanted to find something of a pattern here, and I did not see it there at all. I did go through artistsignatures.com. They wanted to charge me to actually use their primary sources, and I, based on my economic standards, I could not do that. So what I've learned through this process is that sometimes research can take weeks, months, and at some point years. And I believe this is going to be that point in this portrait. Those were the only 2 secondary sources I was able to find on the internet. Nothing led me to anything other than right back to the books that I've collected over my 10 years of collecting hats. And this just shows me, over everything I've collected, that it was so much an everyday part of women's life. I didn't use this one here, the 1920s. I was looking for the reasons why birds were mutilated so much until the Lucy Act that came in 1900s. In fact, Lucy was a male. He was a representative of Ohio. I did gather this information for Wikipedia, and in fact the bird treaty really started in 1916, became established in 1918, which is this hat here, dated 1909. Every hat I have past 1909, I don't see any more bird, or any part of a bird adorned on a hat since then. This is just a fragment of what I have. This is foxes, baby foxes used on a baby bonnet. All the feathers that were used, certainly all exotic. Baby birds here. They're finches, and their bone is coming through their feathers. And I do have the original outfit to go with that hat, by the way. This is to show you just merely what women are actually, all that women actually could keep. And it makes a big difference to me. I've just come to realize, going through this research, that it was the one thing they had control of, and that was their beauty. And until their clubs and campaigns started coming in to work in their favor for their own human rights, for our human rights. So that's basically where I've taken away from this class, is that you know, you have to go in feeling good about your project, and I felt good about both of these projects, and I believe projects sometimes choose you. You don't necessarily choose them. And I guess I can give you a little bit of pointers as to what to look for if you come in, if you find yourself wanting to collect particular hats of the period. You certainly want to be able to know the person you're buying from. That's one. You want to be able to see a history of things that they sold on their website. A lot of the, I'll just give you a couple of references of personal collectors that I've gone through. megandrews.com, she's from England. She's also a curator for one of the museums there. She also helps people set their homes or stage their homes to the period in which they were from. This is one of her hats, and it is listed in one of her links. You could find this same hat listed in one of her links for students who are into fashion or period fashion. And I found this through Woodlands Antiques, and that's through Texas. And she, I knew her son. Her son also has a website. Can't remember at the top of my head, but hers is Woodlands Antiques through Texas. I called her at 9 p.m. her time to save this hat so that I could purchase it the next morning. And another lady from Los Gatos, in fact, I had met her after receiving this hat, was actually bidding higher for it as well. But because I've known her and her son, she couldn't do business that way, and she kept the hat for me. So that's just to let you know how high these hats are sought after, and you can only find them through private collectors. And just to let you know, this hat only cost me $260. She was willing to offer her $700 for this hat, and she was writing a book on women's hats. But I'm glad that I was able to get her before anybody else. So, which is why she'll probably remain with me for the rest of my remaining life. Why I started this collection, primarily because being of Indian descent, when my great-grandparents passed away, the family took everything there was, and there wasn't anything left that was passed down to us, to the younger kids. So 10 years ago, I decided I was going to leave something for my daughter, and this was the collection that I've created. And believe it or not, she's the only one that looks good in hats, because I don't. So I hope you found this as entertaining as it was for me, and I hope that you find the paper I present just as entertaining and resourceful. But yes, I do find that if you collect something, try to stick within the same period so you can see the pattern of things, because you'll start to see the changes as you start a different period, and that would be an easy way to period date your items. It took me 10 years, but I've been in it since age 13, so it came to me fairly easy. The artwork, I just passed through Tacoma, Washington Antique Window one day, and I stopped dead in my tracks, and I had to have her. But now my problem is it's going to take me a little longer for that research. So to get you started on patterns, is that this hat here, the Bird of Paradise, this hat here, which I call it my Edwardian Titanic, because it's all from the 19s to the 1912s, even up to the 1919s, and this one, they are all have the same kind of inner lining. We'll show you the one of the Bird of Paradise. See, it's got that circle in the middle, how it's all gathered and sewn through. That's 1909, and this hat is dated that. This is also same lining. See that little medallion? 1900s, Edwardian period. Same lining. These are patterns I'm showing you. See that window there? Same lining, same type of lining, and from the Edwardian period of the early 1900s. And again, that's another bird of paradise right there. This one too from the 1900s, it is black beaver, just as the other hat is. And this lining is off, but it would have had a lining just as the other two. But these are patterns that I'm giving you a tip of what to look for the same period item hats. 1920, later 1920s into the 1930s, because of World War II, or starting of the war, a lot of fabric were becoming scarce, so you see that they were starting to use cross-grain ribbon. That's this here. And they weren't fully lined. 1930s, here, cross-grain ribbon. They put the label at the seam in the back of the hat. That's 1930s. These are patterns. So that's just to give you an idea of what to look for when you want to start a collection. Is stick with one period item, look for patterns of the similarities of each one, then you move on to the next your next era or your next decade, and you'll start to see the changes. And it primarily took me a long time to see the patterns here, but I love it, and I hope that all of you can find a way to enjoy that too. And I'm sure you have your own collection of certain things, and